So even though this is a virtual program, it still takes a lot of work and a whole team to pull it together. So I want to thank our staff, our board members, and the retired director, Barbara Rocky, for all of your hard work and efforts doing outreach for this year's program. I truly, truly appreciate you all. Then next, I want to thank our sponsors, because we can't do this work without you. And without the support of our local unions, our membership, and folks like you that have joined us this morning. So thank you. I also want to recognize and thank some of the OSHA Region 3 representatives that are joining us this morning. Glad you could take the time to be with us. We have some families that have joined us today, whose loved ones were killed at work. Our board member, Holly Shaw, who you'll hear from a little bit later in the program, she's going to speak about our family network, the family guide, and recognize some of the families that are with us today. So obviously, this year's program looks a lot different. We're not down at the Sheet Metal Workers Hall having breakfast, getting ready to march. It would have been a beautiful day today. But we are here together as a community to honor and recognize those workers that lost their lives, and to fight for safe workplaces and good jobs for all workers. A lot of you also know that we create a fatality list every year. And we give it out during the program, and then we send it out to a lot of folks that request it. This year, the names have doubled, mostly due to COVID-19. But we still will provide folks with the list. If you're interested, you can just give us a call after the program, and we can send it out to you, or shoot me or any of the staff an email, and we'll be sure that you get the list. So next, I want to invite my friend, Pat Eiding, president of the Philadelphia AFL-CIO. He's going to come give us a brief welcome and remarks. So, Pat.
Thank you, Nicole. I almost didn't unmute, whatever that mute is. It's a new day, but good morning, everybody. It's in a form of a way, it's great to be here once again, to be part of the moment in time when we come together to remember the sisters and brothers who lost their lives just on their regular job when they didn't make it home the way they left in the morning. And I also will remember the families who were waiting that day for them to come home and never saw them come home. I know that's maybe a harsh way to put it, but I don't know how you can sugarcoat somebody getting killed on a job where they're just trying to make a living to make their life and their families a little better. So this is one of those times where we would like to be at the Sheet Metal Hall to see everybody and to exchange times and moments. But we're going through some hard times, and we're all going through the same times. But there are times where we can't forget the fight. These are the times we have to make sure we come together and remember those folks that we lost, and keep in mind the folks that we have to represent every day, all working people. You're going to hear today a little bit about a couple pieces of legislation. One's called the PRO Act, and the other is OSHA for OSHA protection for public employees. These are both things that we can fight like hell for, to make sure that things are better in the workplace for all workers, that, as I said a minute ago, folks can come home the way they left in the morning, and that we don't have to have so many numbers and names being read out every year because of the workplace being so unsafe. So I just want to say we need to come together, please listen to the speakers who will represent the laws that we're looking at, PRO Act and OSHA for public employees. And let's remember to get that fight together. Let's continue the fight. Let's not forget where we came. And in the words of Jim Moran, May Day is coming, and that shouldn't be the only day, but that's a day to bring us together. And I know that, the speakers will talk about the fact that our fight will come together on May Day to make sure that we can get these two pieces of legislation done. And again, it's our job to fight for those folks who are working now, not to forget who we lost, but to remember who we're fighting for. So thank you again for being here. Nicole, thank you for the work you do. PhilaPOSH, and I don't want to go through naming names because I'll forget, but everybody has been so great. Your folks are over there are great, and you continue to fight under these crazy times. So thank you for that. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Reverend Colleen Butler, an associate minister at Campbell AME Church, focusing in ministry areas of Christian education, church, school, Carrie Dorsey Taylor Education Fund, bereavement, historical society, estate planning, along with preaching and assisting with the worship service. Reverend Butler is a hospice chaplain who spent 12 and a half years working in the field for Vitas, I'll get it right, Kensington coming out, Innovative Hospice, as the city chaplain visiting patients in their homes and facilities, attending deaths and coordinating and officiating memorial services and funerals. In March 2015, Reverend Butler began working as a bereavement coordinator for Compass Hospice and Palliative Care, where she is responsible for the bereavement services to families who have lost loved ones on campus services, along with coordinating bereavement needs for the campus families. Through Compass Hospice, Reverend Butler also reaches out to do community bereavement events. These events are inclusive of facilitating ongoing grief support group in the Quakertown area every third Thursday evening, and Montgomery County every fourth Monday. Cinema Therapy Grief Group, a pilot summer 2018, memorial services, Youth Memorial Garden Project, community three-part estate planning with Living Will series, along with other events on behalf of Compass Hospice. She also is a regular participant at our Workers' Memorial Breakfast Service. Thank you so much for being here, Reverend Butler, and thank you for all that great work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let us hear a reading. I am the stars twinkling at night. I am the moon glowing and bright. I am the sunshine rising at dawn, giving you light and keeping you warm. I am the rainfall caressing your cheek, sending you rainbows to brighten your week. I am the wind drying your tears, blowing away troubles, smoothing your fears. I am the clouds, so look to the sky. Check out the shape as I'm passing by. I am that butterfly hovering above, that feather, that robin bringing you love. I am the song and that music you hear, sending sweet memories, keeping you near. I am the flower that sends out its scent. I am still around you, I never went. So whenever you're feeling lonely or down, remember I'm with you. I'm always around. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we just come here today to just remember those that have lost their lives through workplace accidents, for those that have also succumbed to COVID. But God, we know that even in the midst of our grief, that God, you keep our loved ones near and you keep our memories alive with them and the spirit of their life that we were able to share with them. So now, God, as we go into this memorial service with more than 300 that have lost their lives, God, give us strength, give us peace, give us comfort. But most importantly, God, let us remember those faces. Let us remember those jobs that they were on and the need for safety. Let us continue to work tirelessly to make sure that not another person loses their life at their work. God, when people go to work, they go to work with the intention of returning home to their families and friends and living life onward. But God, for every time we have to come here in this setting, God, there are families that have empty chairs. There are families that have a door that opens, but the one they expect to come through, it doesn't come through. So God, continue to work, continue to strengthen and keep going the work of PhilaPOSH. And God bless all those that are on this line, those that have lost loved ones. Let them know that you are their comfort and that you will be there for them during those times of sadness. So God bless everything that we do and say here. And it is in the matchless and marvelous name of your dear son that we do pray. And we all say, amen. Thank you, God.
Thank you for that. I'm Paul Grubb with District 1199C, National Union of Hospital and Healthcare Employees, an affiliate of AFSCME. I'm also a vice chair and board member of PhilaPOSH. Good morning to all. It's my pleasure to introduce Tom Tosti, the director of AFSCME District Council 88. Tom, after high school, worked at 3M, joined Teamsters Local 107. Later, he joined AFSCME Local 2158 in 1991 while working for the Department of Transportation. In 1997, he was named vice president of Local 2158. The following year, he was elected president. In 2005, Mr. Tosti was hired as a staff rep for AFSCME District Council 88. And in 2010, he was elected as their director of District Council 88. He serves as a trustee on the Pennsylvania Employees Benefit Trust Fund, the largest healthcare fund in the state. He further serves his community as president of the Bucks County Central Labor Council and was elected Middletown Township Supervisor. He is a board member of the Bucks County Association for Retired and Senior Citizens and was appointed chair of the Philadelphia AFL-CIO Public Sector Committee. He was elected chair of trustees for the Philadelphia AFL-CIO and was appointed to serve on the Bucks County Planning Commission. With that, Tom Tosti, please unmute and take it away.
Thank you, Paul. I didn't realize I had that many credentials, so I appreciate the introduction. Thank you, Nicole, for having me speak today, and to PhilaPOSH for all that you do. I'd also like to pay the condolences to the families of the lost ones that we've lost in the past year. There has been a lot of them, and we have to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. I don't usually get a chance to be here. I'm usually at our convention in Hershey, so it's a pleasure to actually join you this year and be able to have this opportunity. But each year you gather to remember the workers who lost their lives while they're on the job. And it's a tribute to the men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice while working. This year, as we gather, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Occupational Safety and Health Act, better known as OSHA, a law that promises workers in this country the right to a safe working environment. Sadly, though, the workers in Pennsylvania that work in the public sector do not have the same coverage as those in the private sector. Here in Pennsylvania, if you work in the private sector, you have that coverage of OSHA. If you work in the public sector, you are not entitled to any form of OSHA and the protection it provides in the workplace. 22 states across this country provide OSHA coverage for private and public employees. Pennsylvania is not one of them that provides it for the public employees. The sad part is there are many classifications and jobs that people do in the public sector that are the same in the private sector. For instance, in your hospitals, you have nurses, you have CNAs, you have RNs, you have LPNs, you have dietary, you got custodial workers. They all get covered by OSHA each and every day when they go to work. If you go down to the Delaware Valley Vet Center on Southampton Road or the Woodhaven Center on Southampton Road, they're not covered by OSHA. They all have the same classification: LPNs, RNs, custodial staff, dietary workers. They do the same thing that they do in the hospital, but they do not have the OSHA coverage that the employees have in your regular hospitals. You go in your school districts. If your bus drivers are privatized and they are bus drivers that do not work for the school district, they have the OSHA coverage every day they go to work. But if you go into the school district and you are paid by the school district and you're a school district employee, you don't have that same coverage. It goes the same with custodial staff. It goes with the dietitians in the school district. No OSHA coverage because they are a public employee. But if you go to a factory and they have a custodial worker, or you go to a cafeteria and they have dietitians there, they get covered by OSHA each and every day that they walk into that workplace. Our PennDOT workers all across the Commonwealth, They work on our highways every day, are not covered by OSHA. But you can be on a construction job and you can be on the same highway as a PennDOT worker and you're covered by OSHA. And we were in a public sector meeting probably about a year and a half ago, and we represent the PennDOT workers in Philadelphia County. And I got a call that one of our PennDOT workers was rear-ended on the northbound side of I-95. That worker was not covered and no protection under OSHA. But right across the highway on the southbound side, where you have contractors working on the 95, they're covered by OSHA. There's something we have to do about this, and we can do it as a group. Representative Pat Harkins from Erie has put a public sector OSHA bill in the last 3 or 4 sessions, only to have it go nowhere. Even with bipartisan support on the bill, it does not move out of committee. Representative Jim Cox, who chairs the Labor and Industry Committee, he won't move it out of committee. I met with him probably about 2 years ago, and he seems to make it more of a political issue than it is a safety and health issue. Senator Tina Tartaglione, our own senator out of Philadelphia, has put a bill in the Senate the last few years only to have it go nowhere. This session, she has Senate Bill 310, Workplace Health and Safety for Public Employees. We're going to get behind this bill and support it like we have in the past, but I want to ask yourself why? Why would they not want to have a safe workplace for all workers in this Commonwealth? The reason they stop any of these bills from moving is because of cost. Yes, cost. Jim Cox told me that. He said the cost of a public sector OSHA bill would be too costly. What is the cost of a loss of a limb? What is the cost of a disabling injury? What is the cost of one's life? I do not believe there should be a price tag for any of this. We should provide a safe working environment for all workers and not choose which ones we will get it and which ones cost too much. As Nicole and the staff put this together each year, they can go into an OSHA database and pull up every worker who is killed or lost their lives in Pennsylvania who've lost their job through the OSHA database. For public employees, there is no database on any injury, any loss of life, nothing. No accountability for public sector workers in Pennsylvania. Whether it's an injury or a death, you must go through the employers or these workers or their unions to get this information on those who were killed or hurt on the job. Sure, you can read the newspaper, search the web for workers in the public sector, but it shouldn't be that way. Shouldn't there be a system in place to protect workers in any workplace, not just the private? Mother Jones once said, "Pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living." Well, we are going to fight like hell for the workers in all workplaces so we don't have to pray for them because we accepted that the life costs too much to prevent such an accident. Senate Bill 310 is the newest bill in Harrisburg to give workers in the public sector a chance to have the protections they deserve in the workplace. This legislative session, I will be calling on all of us to get behind this bill, to do what we can, make the phone calls to our legislators, to make sure we get a committee hearing and then we can get this bill on the floor. The workers that I represent and all workers in the public sector should get the respect and safety they deserve and have earned for going to work to protect our elderly, teach our kids, maintain our highways, fight our fires, and protect our communities. We can do better for all of them, and we should. Again, I'd like to pay the condolences to the families who've lost loved ones who are on this call. Thank Nicole for everything that her and PhilaPOSH do and for allowing me to bring this issue to light and make people more aware of the work that the public sector do, but do not get the same recognition as the private sector. Thank you, Nicole. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, Tom Tosti, for that call to action, and that PhilaPOSH shall put its shoulder to the wheel in what you called for. Thank you for that. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Rick Bloomingdale, who became the 4th president of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO in June 2010, and he's been reelected since that time. Prior to his election as president, Rick served as secretary treasurer of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO for 16 years. He began his career in the labor movement with AFSCME in 1977. Over the 4 decades, Rick has served AFSCME in many roles, including project staff representative and international to state political legislative director. He has been a driving force in the enactment of agency shop legislation in Pennsylvania that was vital to workers and their families. Rick currently serves on the general board of the AFL-CIO and was recently appointed to the governor's workforce development board, and within that board, the chair of the career pathways and apprenticeship committee. Rick Bloomingdale, please unmute and take it away.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Nicole, and the entire staff of PhilaPOSH for once again providing us with an opportunity to commemorate, to remember, to think about all those who have lost their lives just going to work over the last year. And, you know, Brother Tosti mentioned public sector OSHA, and as you heard from the bio, that's my union. And I was looking at some old pictures from 1990 and of an AFSCME convention, as Tom mentioned, and on the wall of the picture was a big sign that said "Past Public Employee OSHA." Now that was 1990, and here we are, 30 years later, 31 years later, still fighting the same fight. Because we have local elected officials, state elected officials who say it's too expensive. The same arguments they used against private sector OSHA back in 1970 and 71. And by the way, this is the 50th year anniversary of the implementation of the private sector OSHA bill. And 31 years, we still don't have public sector workers protected under the same basic rights that our private sector brothers and sisters have. And that has to change. As Tom said, it's a call to action. We've got to put pressure on these folks. And, you know, one of the things that always amazes me is when they talk about costs, they never talk about benefits. And as good business people, and maybe our local elected officials who always say elect a businessman, I think we tried that with the president and that didn't work too well. But, you know, you're supposed to do a cost benefit analysis, and they never do the benefit analysis. They always do the cost analysis. They never look at the benefits of a healthy and safe workplace, of a workplace that reduces the accident rate, reduces absenteeism. There's a reason the private sector employers no longer call for repeal of OSHA, because they have found that by providing safe and healthy workplaces, their absenteeism rate has gone down, their workers' comp costs have gone down. All the benefits of treating your employees as assets rather than liabilities have accrued to those private sector employers. And we just need to make sure, and it's got to be action, right? We've got to, you know, I was so impressed, and of course the right wing wasn't, by Maxine Waters talking about at the trial of Chauvin that, you know, in our demonstrations, we have to get loud. We have to get in people's faces. We have to remind them that workers every day go, as Tom said, this very same job. And one of the examples I use, which Tom didn't, but he had the PennDOT workers, but the the trash guys and gals. Every day, you know, in my township, we have waste management, but in the city of Harrisburg, you have city employees, and they'll be driving down the same road. And that guy that's on that waste management truck, he has OSHA protections. That worker that rides on the city of Harrisburg trash truck, he doesn't, or she doesn't. And that's the basic difference. It's not a different person. It's not a different job. It's not a different truck. All it is a different employer, which is the reason we have to change that and make sure that all workers have basic OSHA protections. And one of the other things, and one of the ways to do that, of course, in the public sector is if you have a union, you can at least negotiate for some health and safety committees. You don't have the law to back you up. You don't have the inspectors, but you as a union person can fight for those within your collective bargaining agreement, which is why it's so important to pass the PRO Act. Because even in private sector OSHA, we're never going to have enough inspectors to inspect all the workplaces. And the way you use that law is you create health and safety committees. And the way you do that is to have a strong union. And the way you got a strong union is to make sure that unions have the right to organize fairly in this day and age. That's the key to health and safety. Some of the biggest issues at the Amazon organizing drive weren't so much the pay, but the health and safety in those big warehouses where they constantly track everything you do and speed you up, and you have no time, and it results in injuries, forklift accidents, packages falling on folks, back injuries, you name it. You get that in an unprotected. And when was OSHA ever get a chance to get to an Amazon warehouse with the lack of inspectors? And look, the inspectors that we have do an incredible job, and kudos to them and all the great work that they do. And thank goodness we have a union person now as Secretary of Labor who gets health and safety on the job. And we have people in the new federal OSHA who are union members who get health and safety. Hopefully they can get budgets to get more workers and more inspectors. But until they do, and even when they do, the strongest protection is that union protection, that union health and safety committee that can spot those problems on the job. And finally, I just want to mention one last thing. And over the last year, Nicole mentioned, the doubling of deaths, primarily because of COVID. We had so many workers, essential workers, that had to go to work, and employers were slow to get PPEs, and folks were exposed. And while many of them recovered, many of them didn't. And we're still finding out about the long-term effects on those who did recover. But one thing I want to mention, and a lot of times we talk about the physical health and safety of our workers, but also our workers who were working from home and working in those places where there was fear every day. We need to think about the mental health of our workers, because we've seen an increase in suicides. And those are workplace injuries in and of themselves because of what happens in those workplaces when folks are isolated by working from home and the pressure gets to them, or they're in a workplace where there aren't adequate protections and they get so fearful that it causes a breakdown in their mental health. So let us not only think about and remember those who have died and injured on the physical side, but also on the mental side. Those workers are struggling every day, and we need to find ways to improve not only our physical health and safety, but the mental health and safety of our workers as well. And, as Tom said, and Pat said, our thoughts and prayers go to all those families, and blessings to all those families who've lost a loved one over the last year. And speaking of isolation, I would much rather be with all of you at the Sheet Metal Workers Hall, remembering our folks together, where we can pray together, we can talk together, and remember together all those folks who just went out to work expecting to come home and didn't. So hopefully next year we'll be together in person and marching from sheet metal to that beautiful ceremony and moving ceremony along the river. And I just want to thank PhilaPOSH again and the staff and everybody for all the great work they do keeping workers safe. Thank you so much. And remember that America works best when we say union yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rick Bloomingdale. Thanks for everything that you do and your message today. I would like to present Hilary Linardopoulos, who is with PFT Local 3. She's taught at the Julia de Burgos Elementary School in the West Kensington neighborhood of Philadelphia for 9 years. And for the last 7 years has served on the staff of the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers. She serves as a legislative representative on the executive board and leads the PFT's political program. She also leads the Fund Our Facilities Coalition, composed of more than 60 elected officials from all levels of government, community groups, and labor unions. The coalition works to find real solutions to the critical infrastructure needs facing Philadelphia's schools. She also frequently writes op-ed pieces for the Philadelphia Inquirer and blogs for the Huffington Post. Hilary, please unmute.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Nicole, thank you for your ongoing work and partnership. To the family of Jim Moran, we remember him and thank him for his lifelong advocacy and efforts and work in making the jobs that we all do easier and safer each day. And to those who are on the call who have lost loved ones at work, my thoughts are with you, and on behalf of the PFT, our thoughts are with you, and we mourn the loss of your loved one and continue, and we double down on our efforts continuing to fight for fair and safe workplaces. So I am, as Paul said, I'm on staff at the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers. I work closely with many of you that are on this call. I saw President Eiding on there, and I will just say that President Eiding, Paul, was the second call that I've been on this week that he said my name better than you did. So you've got some competition there, President Eiding. So thank you, Paul. So at the PFT, we fight for a lot of things, and I think that one of the most central things that we fight for is equity and justice. And when you think of equity and justice, you think of students that go into school buildings that are equitably funded, where they have the resources that they need and deserve to grow and thrive, and in fact that they're constitutionally entitled to. But somewhere, somehow, and somewhere, somehow means a system of systemic racism and systemic bias and deep-seated racism that allows for school funding to be seen as optional in districts that educate largely Black and brown children. So we are in a situation where somehow, because of this deep-seated racism, school funding is seen as a nice to have or negotiable item. And that is the furthest thing from the truth, because it is not. It's a moral obligation. But because of this deep inequity, there are schools throughout our district that are poisonous for children and staff to work in and to learn in. And there are conditions that have quite literally cost people their lives. When you think about school funding, the bare minimum is to ensure that our students have a safe and welcoming and healthy place to work and learn. But yet you have some situations like that of Chris Trakamas, an SEIU member who lost his life due to a boiler explosion at FS Edmonds School some years ago. You have situations like Dean Pagan, who was a first grader in the district, and in wanting to keep his desk tidy, took his finger and cleaned up lead paint chips and ate them, and was poisoned, and has spent and will be spending his whole life dealing with the aftermath of that. You have situations like our beloved member Leah DeRusso, who spent her entire career teaching in classrooms with known damaged asbestos and has been diagnosed with mesothelioma and forced into early retirement. You have situations like Chelsea Mungo, who wrote to her state senator and asked Vincent Hughes and said, why does the color of my skin influence the condition of my school building? Said, my school building feels like a prison or a junkyard. We're sending an absolutely obscene and horrific message to the students that we serve when we say, we appreciate you, we support you, now go into this building and learn, you might get poisoned. So one of the things that we have done at the Federation is really brought this, called this into the forefront. We have made this a central part of the work that we do. And so a lot of times, many of you on this call know this, when you speak to an elected official in one body of government, they say, okay, well, what is the federal government doing? Or what's the state government doing? Or what's the city government doing? What are the advocacy groups doing? So we thought at the PFT, we're gonna bring all these groups together, everybody at one table, advocates, labor unions, parent groups, and electeds from every level of government. And we brought everybody to this table, fund our facilities, and we said we are going to come up with real workable solutions. We know that the school district of Philadelphia, to bring our school buildings to the condition where people do not get poisoned, which is a very low bar, would be about, we know the cost to do that would be about $200 million. And so we defined that because a lot of times, a cost is put out there, $5 billion to get to establish the schools our kids deserve in terms of facilities. People hear $5 billion and they go, they say, well, that's just not possible. First of all, we know it's possible, but we do know that there are interim solutions for immediate remedies. And that's what we have done at the Fund Our Facilities Coalition. We've defined those, and we have done a lot of advocacy in making sure that people know what that figure is and how it can happen and what can be done. And so we have weekly meetings. We are working very, very hard to bring that funding to fruition, and always wanting to make sure that we're defining the work we do as centered around the health and safety of students and of staff, because I can't think of anything more important. And the work that PhilaPOSH does and the work that all of you do in your own universes, which are, we all are in the same circles, but working in different silos sometimes that we need to make sure to connect, is just so critical. So I think that, I appreciate this opportunity, and, we at the PFT are very, very committed to continuing this fight with all of you. Appreciated very much Tom Tosti's reference to the public sector being represented in OSHA. That is a critical endeavor, and appreciate very much the opportunity. And Nicole, I truly appreciate your ongoing partnership and your, everything that you do and all of your work. And thank you all very much for the opportunity, and look forward to continuing this fight together, because people are our colleagues, our members, our friends, our constituents, our families, our students, they deserve it and they need it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Hilary. Thank you for teaching us and calling out the moral imperative. Much appreciated. So with that, again, once again, I'm Paul Grubb. I'm with District 1199C, National Union of Hospital and Healthcare Employees, an affiliate of AFSCME. I'm also a vice chair and board member of PhilaPOSH. It's with great sadness that we once again acknowledge the passing of our great friend and comrade, Jim Moran. Longtime PhilaPOSH director Jim Moran passed away on November 21st. He was 81. Brother Jim was a friend, mentor, and teacher for so many over the decades throughout the region and the national COSH movement in the fight for safe jobs and building working class power. We must also acknowledge his wife of nearly 50 years, Agnes White. Dear Aggie Moran, We thank her for finding, guiding, and saving Jim Moran, and for her own contributions in building PhilaPOSH and the movement. Jim and Aggie, often referred to as one, completed each other. As Jim often said, without Aggie Moran, there would have been no Jim Moran. Jim Moran never forgot which side of the street he was born. Self-taught and schooled by the labor movement, Jim was socially aware and working class conscious. He served as a conscience and guiding star for labor. Jim had a fun, folksy charisma, a natural ability to connect with and inspire people. He could make any organizing project easy and fun, one that people wanted to join and be a part of with Jim Moran. Many who were fortunate enough remember and cherish the social meetings with Jim Moran before the meeting and the social after the meeting. Jim taught the practical and social, building close, strong, lasting relationships, getting things done, and having fun while doing it. So important were those social meetings that his wife Aggie had Jim spend precious household funds to build a basement bar. Many relationships were nurtured there. Jim possessed a focus and a presence in the moment, in a discussion or debate, never at a loss for thoughtful words, with impeccably well-timed humor and his clever turns of phrase. Many folks enjoyed his storytelling, stories of his first befriending others, and then where it went from there. I wish those stories had been recorded. He posed the simple and profound questions. Then the Kickstarter idea. Suppose we were to do the following. Yes, Jim is a giant with great impact and influence on so many. Present in so many moments, he and PhilaPOSH were a laboratory, training, mentoring, turning out talented, impactful organizers for labor and the occupational safety and health movement. We should all be grateful to build upon his work. Here are some examples of his teaching and impact. PhilaPOSH's 1981 PACO strike support with beef and beer social fundraisers. Jim framed it as capital's expanding class war on workers, a human rights and workplace health and safety fight. The Right to Know campaigns back in the 70s and 80s. PhilaPOSH confounded the pro-business and corporate lackeys under Jim's leadership. The fight for an effective OSHA and defense of OSHA, and the iconic PhilaPOSH wanted posters of the enemies of the working class. Building of workplace health and safety committees, that also served for teaching and mentoring unionists to effectively fight the boss and win on all kinds of issues. Building something impactful with Workers' Memorial Day, now an ongoing iconic Philadelphia annual observance. Jim, through PhilaPOSH, also posed the question, how is it that labor in a labor town had not organized a Labor Day observance in over a century? That led to the founding of the Philadelphia Labor Day Parade, and now an annual parade and celebration drawing thousands of unionists from throughout the area. Jim recognized with other unionists the necessity for building an independent political movement for the working class. That was reflected throughout his work. Jim asked how it is that labor in over 100 countries observe May Day, a holiday declared by the World Labor Movement in honor of a United States general strike. How is it that it's erased from school history books, not taught, honored or celebrated by U.S. labor. That was the start of the Philadelphia May Day USA Education Committee and annual May Day observances. Jim was righteous in his indignation and the organizing of the Free Joe Doc campaign and legal defense fund in defense of the unjustly tried and jailed Ironworkers Local 401 president, Joe Doherty, exposing and educating on the war on the working class. For all these things and more, we should all be grateful. Thank you, Jim. We love you, brother, and in solidarity. Now we'll take a few minutes for a tribute video of Jim Moran put together by an allied organization, PhilaCam. Thank you.
Now, if you want higher wages, let me tell you what to do. You got to talk to the workers in the shop with you. You got to build you a union, got to make it strong. But if you all stick together, boys, it won't be long. You get shorter hours, better working conditions, vacations with pay, take a kid to the seashore. It ain't quite this simple, so I better explain just why you got to ride on the union train, because if you wait...
Here's what I know about Jim Moran. One, he is the heart and soul of the labor movement. His mission in life is to help organize workers to win the material goods they need and the respect that they deserve for themselves and their families. Two, he never forgets where he came from, a tough neighborhood in Philadelphia. And three, he is loyal to his friends, his union brothers and sisters, his community, his country, and his class. So here's to you, Jim Moran.
Our family history, as I see it, was and still is to some degree a long line of narrow thinkers. Just repeat what you're taught, don't question it. A major change happened when you, as a young man, educated yourself and started questioning everything, becoming more of a critical thinker. This put you at odds with some family members and others, but I'm grateful you did it because your influence got me to think about my own education in life, realizing my own learning process had been skewed. I started questioning things myself, developing my own internal values, and was much more comfortable with the way I thought. Generally speaking, a kid from Kensington like me with no real direction in life usually follows a particular path, and few deviate from it. But instead, I followed a different path, and I attend events and read books and hear speeches by Amy Goodman, Howard Zinn, Noam Chomsky, and others, and I actually got to speak with some of them. That's not normally what happens to kids like me from Kensington. However, I was lucky enough to have an uncle who was also from Kensington, and I appreciate your influence and your examples, and you've had a huge impact with regard to my critical thinking. I couldn't imagine life without it.
Okay, hey Dad, it's your daughter, and I just wanted to say you're my hero and I love you. And you know, this time together that we have, it's really good. And I think I said everything I want to say to you. There's so much, and don't forget I love you. I'm on your side.
I think it's very important to be on the right side of things, and I owe that to you. You know, I can trace it back. I can trace that back. If you rewind this movie back to when I'm 6 or 7 years old, I'm 54 now. You come into the house, guitar, long hair, jokes like George Carlin. And yeah, what more could you want as a kid? You know, that's pretty cool. But you brought something much more important. You brought something different. You brought knowledge into the house, and that's different. That's a whole different ball game. It was a place, 406 East Allegheny Avenue in Kensington. There wasn't a lot of knowledge happening in my house or in the houses, the other houses in the neighborhood. It's not something that, you know what I mean. And that changed my life. That is a whole other ball game.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
From all of you good workers, good news to you I'll tell of how the
May Day is as American as apple pie. It happened here. It started here. And it was during the struggle for the 8-hour day. And some 80 countries recognize May Day as the day to honor workers globally. About 10 years ago, we held an event for May Day and decided to do that each year now. And I told Pat this, I said, it'll take 10 years for this to get any traction. I knew that. And here we are at the 10th year, and interestingly enough, all of a sudden we're hearing national strike on May Day.
Thank you for all you've done for working people. I think about the time we were walking through City Hall and folks were carrying a casket, and the whole purpose was to get City Council to support Councilman Cohen's legislation for an asbestos bill, which, by the way, turned out to be the best asbestos piece of legislation in the country. And you know how reluctant I was to join the crowd back in those days when I represented Local 14. But I knew that we had a lot of people dying from mesothelioma, and we couldn't have gotten this bill without you pressing the issue and leading the way.
I figured out just now that we've known each other for over 45 years, and there have been so many memories working with individuals who got fired fighting for safety and health and trying to get their jobs back. And Jimmy Cosenza comes to mind. Or working to form safety and health committees like you did at ITE Gould when you were in the UAW. Or taking on big national, huge battles like defeating the Schweiker amendments to OSHA, which included picketing his house, which a lot of folks, or some folks, didn't like, but we thought it was the right thing to do at the time. And there are just so many memories.
I think what I remember the most was your smile, the fact that you were always trying to figure out how to sort of move forward and dealing with a whole lot of difficult personalities. And I do remember, I do recall like the various fights that we were engaged in together, and that you would call and we would conspire sort of how to move the stagio labor movement in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. And you also had to deal with New Jersey as well, because you were a multi-state, geographical COSH group, and the whole crew up there, and trying to figure out a way how to get those folks to move, in any way possible. And you did. You absolutely did. And I think it was really a testament to you, and a testament to the fact that, Corey, you're like a labor guy, a trade unionist, but you care first and foremost about workers.
To Jim Moran, the militant trade unionist and warrior for social, economic, and racial justice, you guided Charlie onto such an important path as you've guided the COSH movement and so many others. Thank you for inspiring so many for so long. The work you have done will not only speak for you, as the song goes, but will be instrumental in helping new generations speak for themselves and others in an ever-growing movement that is your legacy.
We need our own party. And we keep hanging out with the Democrats and giving them all our money, for example, and all our shoe leather, and our troops in the street, and so forth, to win elections. But we, as the saying goes in the movement, we can elect, but we cannot collect. When it comes time to do for us what we want, such as healthcare as it should be, national healthcare, everybody in, nobody out, okay? Free healthcare, stop wars and let's have healthcare, for example.
Have to sing something for him.
Let us
And
hear
this
it.
is actually dedicated to his wife. So I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'm going to try my best. And this is for you too, Jim. The name of it is Union Made. Okay, I'm gonna try. There once was a union maid who never was afraid of goons and ginks and company thinks and deputy sheriffs who made the raid. She went to the union hall where meeting it was called, and when the sheriffs came around, she always stood her ground.
It was my first job out of school. I remember my interview with you and then with Rick Engler. I think I nailed it when Rick asked me, "What are your thoughts on management?" And I said, "I hate management." The job was mine. Anyway, I loved working with you at PhilaPOSH, along with Sandra Dungy, Jerry Balter, Joe Lurie. You wore your leadership lightly, tough to your adversaries, at the same time kind, stubborn, funny, irreverent, and always, always on the side of the little guy. Also, as a young woman trying to figure out love, I used to watch you and Aggie at the PhilaPOSH office and think to myself, these two people really seem to like each other. Is that even possible in a marriage?
Your experience, your generous guidance, and your amazing savvy and strategic thinking, mixed with what seemed to be a boundless commitment and passion in advocating for the absolute right to a safe and healthy workplace for every worker, not just rubbed off on me, but also marked me somehow, providing me with something to aim for.
Censorship is in many forms. The omission from textbooks in the schools, the twisting of the truth by the press, who's supposed to be defending the truth, and on and on and on it goes. And in all the forms of our culture and our history we're being deprived of.
I just want to send you a huge shout out and a big thank you for all the work you've done as a board member and as one of the founders of PhilaPOSH. You know, you guys hired me back in 2007, and I couldn't be more appreciative and more thankful. You've been around to share your wisdom and all your knowledge when it comes to health and safety and pretty much just workers' rights. So, without you, I wouldn't be sitting here. So I truly appreciate it. Send you my warm wishes and much love.
We really wish more labor leaders would be like you, connecting the poor and unemployed together. And also, I want to thank you for chairing, the Labor Party Committee here in Philadelphia, for my sheriff's campaign, for being the treasurer for Jill's campaign, for doing so many very important things. We just intend to pass on all of the lessons that we've learned from your working class, principled life, from one Kensington woman to another Kensington man. We love you.
Through the workers' blood shall run. There can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Hi, I'm Holly Shaw Hollis, and I'm the family representative for PhilaPOSH. My husband Scott was killed in 2002, and Jim's the one who got me active in PhilaPOSH and started my road to fighting for worker safety and for the families of those who we've lost. I wanted to recognize several of our family members who are here today on this call. The family of Joey Israel, who was killed in 2003, and the family of Thomas Hetrick, killed in 2008, family of Richie Brady, killed in 2008, the family of Kevin Sparks, killed in 2009, the family of Leonard Mendelowski, who was killed in 2016, and the family of Joseph Azanero, and also in memory of my husband, Scott, who was killed in 2002. So we're gonna do something different today and look at slides instead of being at the Penn's Landing. And then after that, I'll have something else to say. You rolled slides, Andrew. Too many names this year, too many families. I wanted to thank again our sponsors for Workers' Memorial Day this year. Laborers Local 57, USW District 10, BMWE Pennsylvania Federation, IBEW Local 98, the Pennsylvania State AFL-CIO, Sheet Metal Workers Union Local 19, CWA Local 13000, IBEW Local 126, the A. Philip Randolph Institute, AFSCME DC 33, AFSCME DC 88, AFSCME Local 1637, AFSCME Local 1199C, IBEW Local 827, IBEW Local 744, IBEW Local 126, Ponlahaki Law Firm, American Postal Workers Union Local 7048, IUPAT Painters DC 21, AFT Pennsylvania, and the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers. Now we come to the part where I'm always inspired and comforted by the words of Rabbi Leibling. Rabbi Mordechai Leibling is the interim director of organizing for Power Interfaith. He founded and directed the social justice organizing program at the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, from which he was ordained. Prior to that, he was the executive vice president of Jewish Funds for Justice, which is now Bend the Arc. Earlier, he was the executive director of the Jewish Reconstructionist Federation. He serves on the boards of the Shalom Center, Faith in Action, and the Faith and Politics Institute. He's written numerous book chapters and magazine articles, and he's married to Lynn Iser, and together they have 5 children. So thank you, Rabbi, for being here, and your turn.
Thanks so much, Holly. Brothers, sisters, siblings, thank you for the honor of being able to speak here today at this solemn and sad moment. We're here to remember and to pay tribute to those who died while working, loved ones of many of us gathered here now, fathers, mothers, husbands, wives, siblings. Somebody's child who died while doing what they were supposed to be doing. Many left the house one day off to work, a regular day. Maybe you kissed them goodbye or hugged them, and maybe you didn't, but your loved one never came home again. And this year, there are those essential workers who were exposed to COVID through their work. Those in the medical world, from doctors and nurses to hospital orderlies to supermarket and restaurant workers, and many others, but disproportionately in lower wage jobs and disproportionately black and brown people. All of this made even more painful by our inability to be with them in their last hours. For the loved ones remaining, there is the empty place at the table, the clothing still hanging in the closet, the laundry still to be washed, the bed cold, and the hearts of the loved ones left behind, broken open in a chest, aching with sadness. A pain that we can never imagine, that rips us apart and is made worse by our confusion of how did this happen? A pain that no one deserves. Our grief over their deaths is magnified and made so much more painful because we know it didn't have to be that way. In some cases, it was because of employer negligence or greed. In other places, faulty equipment. For some, it was doing their job in the system that doesn't provide adequate safeguards. And for some, it was a true accident. And for those who died from COVID-19, many would be alive if we had a better healthcare system or employers who took proper precautions. Our sadness is greater because we are always thinking it didn't have to be that way, it didn't have to happen, and it did. And it is hard to stop asking, why did it happen? Why did it happen to my loved one? And asking the question just contributes to our torment And sometimes we can't help but to ask. Yeah, that is part of the mystery of life, and there is so much that we will never know. Yet we have to live with the consequences, with the aftermath, with the empty space in our hearts, with the loneliness, grief. And then sometimes there is endless paperwork dealing with bureaucracies and, of course, figuring out how to pay the bills. Mourning is hard, and it takes time. Today, all over America, workers gather to remember our siblings who have lost their lives, and we remember to fight for safe workplaces and for good jobs for all workers. And we especially remember those who died in the last year. Our families, members, friends, co-workers, comrades, allies who are workers, who are making a positive contribution to our society, who are building our world and taking care of others. Their contributions are missed. They were just looking for a good day's pay for a good day's work. They wanted to go to work to provide for their families, and they wanted to get home in one piece. Their deaths were preventable tragedies that disable our workers, devastate our families, and damage the well-being of everyone. To honor them and to honor the life work of Jim Moran, we need to build a society in which all human life is valued, where the life of every worker is understood to be precious and treated that way, and where every employer is legally required and held accountable to provide safe working conditions. Yes, we have to mourn our losses, and yes, we have to organize to prevent future needless deaths. The sudden death of someone we love can easily shake our faith, shake our sense that life has any meaning. We are the ones who now have to create the meaning for our lives and for their lives, and as importantly, create meaning for their deaths. We make meaning by working for a world that honors and keeps safe the lives of all working people, a world where their human dignity is honored 24/7, a world where every wage is a living wage in every sense of the word living. And I'll close by reading the 23rd Psalm. You are my shepherd, I am content. You lead me to rest in the sweet grasses, to lie down by the quiet waters, and I am refreshed. You lead me down the right path, the path that unwinds in the pattern of your name. And even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear, for you are with me, comforting me with your rod and your staff, showing me each step. You prepare a table for me in the midst of my adversity and moisten my head with oil. Surely my cup is overflowing, and goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and in the long days beyond, I will always live within your house. Amen, and thank you all.
Rabbi Leibling, Pat Eiding, Rick Bloomingdale, Tom Tosti, Hilary Linardopoulos, and our board, Paul Grubb, Holly Shaw. Thank you all. We have a short video for folks if you want to stick around and watch a video from a previous Worker Memorial Day. I believe it was from 2011. We actually were outside and in person. So enjoy your day. Please pray for our fallen workers, and thank you.
John Adams, 38 years old. Kevin Henry, 46 years old.
Cody Fyock, 23 years old.
Kevin Campbell, 49 years old.
Robert Bancord, age 29.
Jose Lopez Vasquez, 37 years
Mitchell,
old.
age 49.
Annie Hughes, 30 years old.
Richard Condrell, 36
48 years old.
Gregory Bush,
Died
26 years old. Died.
United States, we lose about 4,000 to 5,000 workers every year on the job, work-related deaths. About 12 deaths a day. As my other leader besides Keith, Utility Workers President Mike Langford says, if we lost 12 soldiers every day in Iraq or Afghanistan, this country would be outraged, up in arms. And yet we lose 12 people just like you and me every day on the job.
Here we are a year later, paying homage to the 170 workers that were killed during the past 12 months in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. But also to remember that we have a call to action, and that when we leave here today, we'll be more committed than ever to fight the fight we need to fight to be sure that every worker is able to go home every day the same way they went to work, alive, uninjured, and healthy.
Yo estoy aquí en el Memorial Day, Labor Memorial Day. Estamos haciendo un homenaje para las mujeres que fueron muertas hace 100 años por causas de discriminación, de que no había leyes que fijaran bien y que apoyaran a los trabajadores. Eran inmigrantes, yo soy un inmigrante y yo quiero, hasta hoy quiero ser la voz de mi gente.
100 years ago, we didn't have OSHA. We didn't have PhilaPOSH. However, on March 25th, 1911, that was a dark day in labor's history. 146 workers, mainly immigrant women, were killed in a factory. They were poor women, women who had to work every day. They didn't have exits for the women, the fire escapes weren't working, and when the fire started, women got killed because they could not get out of that building.
Pasó hace 100 años, nosotros lo estamos recordando todos los días y es importante recordarlo no solamente este día, sino todos los días porque en los puestos de trabajo está pasando a diario. Entonces hay que hacer un llamado a todas las autoridades de decir estamos unidos y no queremos que siga pasando ni con una comunidad ni con la otra. Pero no habiendo leyes, nosotros somos seres humanos que tenemos dignidad y tenemos que...
That companies will understand that it's more than just the bottom end or the bottom dollar, that there are individuals and families that are accompanying each and every position that they have. It's not just about the money. So God, we ask that you would continue to be with this organization and do all that you do. And we ask it as humbly as we know how.
I am here today at this Workers' Memorial celebration because my husband was killed May 21st, 2008 in a work-related injury.
Faces. Because it's not just statistics, it's faces of the family members.
It's very important for families to know that they are not alone, to know that there are other people who have suffered the same way that you have.
Every single one of those 12 deaths that we suffer every day is a family's tragedy. It is a labor movement tragedy, whether they are union or non-union. But each death is also a public crisis. We grieve for every worker killed every day. and sisters, grief is not enough. Our heavy hearts are not enough. Action is required, and that's why I love PhilaPOSH and this great Philadelphia labor movement.
I think the work that PhilaPOSH does is very important because they reach out to families who have suffered a loss as a result of a workplace injury, and they work for workplace safety, which I think is extremely important, not just to prevent deaths, but to prevent illness and sickness as a result of the work that people do. Porque yo fui una trabajadora, ahora soy una organizadora, pero yo fui una trabajadora que padeció las mismas irregularidades, las mismas injusticias que están viviendo los trabajadores latinos en este momento. Y es por eso que yo exigí justicia y me la negaron. Y yo no sabía dónde buscar ayuda y no la encontré. Pero PhilaPOSH me ha puesto el camino y me ha dicho, aquí están los medios para que lleguemos porque fueron lastimados mis derechos humanos, y es por eso que yo estoy recurriendo a ellos para que ellos sigan siendo la luz y el camino y la guía de los demás compañeros y que no se vuelva a repetir lo que pasó en mi misma persona.
I've been involved in the labor movement for over 30 years, you know, and I've seen a lot of deaths. We represent railroad workers, and it's a very dangerous industry. So I'm here because I understand, you know, what happens out there on the job, and I'm willing to, you know, read off the name of anyone just to remember, you know, have their memory represented at this event.
That's my brother. I got a picture right here.
It's like my best friend.
I always miss him. My family miss him.
You know, you go to work, you punch in, you think you're going to punch out at the end of the day, you know, and I don't think anybody, none of these people, you know, deserve to die just trying to make a living and feed their family. So, you know, I think that's why this is important that, you know, they have this day to honor their memory, you know, because nobody deserves to go out like that. It's senseless.
We're here to remember and pay tribute to men and women who died while working, the loved ones of many of us who are sitting here right now, fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, husbands, wives, children, somebody who was out in the world doing what they were supposed to be doing that day. We are the ones who now have to provide the meaning for their lives, and as importantly, for their deaths. We can give meaning by working for a world that honors and keeps safe the life of all working people.
It's hard to lose somebody, and I see a lot of people out here hurting, and they're going through a lot of pain. And I understand that. It hurts to see a family member lost, and I feel that grief and I feel that pain, but we all together gonna stand as one and help each other out and make ourselves better and make ourselves stronger, and always remember that they always in our heart. And my brother had 3 kids, and
Donald Hewitt, 51, fell off the back of a golf cart hitting his head.
Will avoid Russell Bangham, 77 years old, killed at work. Balthazar Reyes, 41 years old, killed at work. Will avoid Jr., 49 years old, killed at work.
Mohammed Yunus, 58 years old, cab driver. This is the 23rd year that PhilaPOSH has been doing this. It's important for, I think, 3 reasons. First of all, the families of the workers who have been killed suffer deeply, and you know, they go through the funeral of their loved one, and yet the pain doesn't go away. The need for support of others who've been through it is very strong. It's important for all of labor to be reminded of the importance of them fighting for health and safety on the job every day. And so it's the day of remembrance, but it's also a day to call for action for the coming year, and that's why we need to do it.
Lonnie Rowland, 36 years old.
Trevor Casey Compton, 34 years old, killed at work February 10, 2011, shot during a fight between coworkers.
Richard Tondreau,
it's important for us, and it helps us focus on what's important when we go in and to our jobs and fight for the safety of us and our coworkers. This is the one day a year we get to reflect on how important that is.
Thank you.
We have a responsibility to demand that the lives of workers are as important as the lives of any other human beings, and that no human life is expendable. No human life is expendable. No human being is a commodity. It is a child of God, created by God, with a soul that demands dignity, respect, safety, and health.
So thank you again, everyone. Have a great weekend, and please be safe.